Good morning. Oh, Friday morning. It is here finally, and it looks like the snow is back as well. And of course, talking about being here, I have the pleasure of welcoming Maria Fitzpatrick into the studio. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you head back to the provincial legislature coming up right away. I'm very honored to have you in the studio this morning as we watch the snow come down. For our watchers, YouTube and Facebook, I want you guys to keep in mind this. Love to have your questions. We're not a political forum this morning. What we are is an opportunity to connect. We've been talking about connection all week long, and I had the opportunity to connect with Maria and find out a little bit more about what motivated her to move forward into this political arena. And she used to be actually my MLA, and I'm very happy to be able to have her in this morning. So let's go back in time, Maria. Go back to the Rock. How does a fine, young, wonderful woman like yourself, first of all, end up in Western Canada? And how did you get your beginnings? What was the motivation? What was was there a political leaning back in the day?
Okay, so I grew up with political conversations around the dinner table every night. My parents were avid watchers of what was going on, and they certainly shared their opinion with all of us as we grew up and welcomed the debate. So when we looked at an issue, we looked at all sides of an issue, and I'm telling you, there were 6 kids around that table, and we all had an opinion. But we were certainly encouraged to share that opinion, and I think that might have been the beginning of it. And I think that I was always a bit of a rebel. I remember in school being told something, and I'd ask why. Now, lots of kids ask why, but I was persistent, to say the least. And I certainly got in trouble lots in school for asking why. And at one point, I told a teacher, God gave me a brain and expected me to use it. I was in deep trouble when I got home that night. However, I believe that's true. And I believe everybody should use their brain. I think that you should be informed when you make decisions. I think that you have to look at every side of a topic to make an informed decision about what your opinion is. So I think I've grown up like that. And when I went to university, I thought that, I'm at university and this is about thinking, it's about developing ideas. Well, I found out that no, the first 4 years are not about developing,
not even close.
Developing ideas. It's about spewing what you've been taught, which was very similar to high school. And I have to say that I think I was blessed with a pretty good brain, but I never actually studied until my 3rd year at university. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I've wasted so much time that I could have really delved into all kinds of material that I didn't when I was in school. But when my 3rd year university, I was sick study week before exams, and I needed to read 35 books for my English course.
Wow.
And I decided I couldn't read 35 books. It was just too much. But I was not feeling well, so I kind of looked at the books I had to read. I divided them kind of into 2 groups, and I read one from this group and one from that group. And the exam asked a number of questions, and they said, pick any one of these books and answer these questions. Pick either one of these and answer these questions. And fortunately, I had one from either group. And then I had to analyze a poem. And it was like there was so much I had to say, and I hadn't really involved myself in that course all year. So I really looked back and thought, oh, I wasted a lot of time. but it did make a difference, certainly for my next year at university. And when I went back in 1987 and 88, I did a course in teaching adults at St. FX University in Antigonish, Nova Scotia. And I learned more about teaching in that course than I did in the 4 years that I was at university.
I can honestly relate to that, but I like this concept of time that you talk about. It's never too late. Never too late. And here we are, you're sitting in the Jess FM studios, and this rings home to me as somebody who has been on stage, speaker, hypnotist, stage hypnotist, therapist, and I think, here I'm in my 50s, and I have a lot of friends in politics. And, oh, well, is it too late for that? Or, gee, I see my younger friends doing this. And then I have this wonderful person come in and say, it's never too late. And you're very young, spry, 60-ish type of woman. And here you are, a member of the Legislative Assembly in your 60s. You're living proof that it's never too late. How do you go from, now you weren't just a teacher, you had this really, really, I'm going to say safe, maybe it wasn't safe because you were in corrections, but you had this safe, stable career. And then you decide to go into politics, which in Alberta this day and age, I don't know if it's safe. We're in this time of maybe a little bit of turmoil, and there are a lot of very passionate political issues, especially Lethbridge, the drug situation, fentanyl, everything like that. And here you are. How does one go from, what's the mindset? And I really, if you can, frame this for our young listener, maybe our female listeners that have some political aspirations.
Okay, so when I was in high school, and even when I was at university, I did education and physical education. My music teacher from high school was ready to kill me because she thought I should be in music. And I love music. I still love music. But I also had a passion in terms of sports. So I never planned on going into corrections. I'd never planned on going into politics. However, as your life proceeds, things happen. And I've had lots of things happen in my life that displeased me. And I wanted to fix a number of those things. So I had said to you earlier, politics was a discussion around our table every day. But my father always said, don't complain if you're not going to do something about it.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece is I went from, I did teach high school phys ed and decided that I didn't want to teach high school phys ed because I had to motivate girls to come into the gym and participate. And I just thought everybody should love coming into the gym because I did. So the motivation part was pretty tough for me. Anyway, I did a number of different things, but eventually, because of sports, I got into corrections. And
that's because of sports?
Yes. So I lived in Yellowknife for a number of years, and when I went to Yellowknife, a friend of mine was a parole officer, and he looked after offenders who were on parole at a halfway house. And one of the things that they did was involve those offenders in community sports. But all the community sports that they could be involved in were mixed. And these were just guys at a halfway house. So he said, how about if you come out and, play slow pitch with the guys, play volleyball, play basketball, whatever, so that we can have a team that participates in the city sports. I said, sure, I'd love to do that. And I went out and I got involved, and you start to realize that everybody that was at that halfway house had a backstory.
Yeah.
And what could I do that could encourage them or motivate them to move to a pro-social lifestyle. So, long story short, a position opened up at the parole office. I applied on it. I won the position. I was there for a couple of years, and then the recreation supervisor position opened at the jail in Yellowknife,
Yeah.
and I went out there. So I worked out there for probably 3 years, and three and a half, and my partner at the time was being transferred to Penhold, to the flight service station there, and so I requested a transfer of sorts, and because it was territorial to federal, I couldn't do a transfer. So I applied on a position as a guard at Bowden Institution, and there were 865 people who applied, and I did qualify for the job. However, there was a term position opened at the parole office, which was certainly more suited to my skills.
Yeah.
So I took the term position at the parole office, and after getting that term renewed 4 or 5 times, then I finally applied for and got a permanent position. So that put me into federal corrections. And I had not done criminology, I had not done sociology, I hadn't done psychology except for a few courses. However, it was a place to learn about human behavior.
Yeah.
And again, how can I motivate people to make a change in their lifestyle? How can I motivate them to want to be pro-social? So I think that was the beginning of a political career. I just didn't know it at the time. So I worked for almost 33 years in corrections. And while I was working in corrections, I was president of my local union at 2 of my work sites. And I was because there were things that happened that I felt were inappropriate in a workplace. And you really have to step up to the plate if you're going to start fighting those things, because your career, it's probably going to be put on a shelf.
Yeah.
And I recognize that, but to me the question was, what's right or what's about me? And I had to do what was right, because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. So working in parole, working with the union, and now working politically, all have several things in common. There are issues that need to be fixed. I need to find solutions, and I need to fix them.
Yeah.
Same thing in all 3 positions. So the last probably 9 years of my career, I was actually working a job at national headquarters. Well, maybe longer than 9 years, because I lived in Ottawa for 9 years, and then I came back and I finished off that job here in Lethbridge. And I retired so that I could run in the provincial election in 2015. But I ran because when I was in Ottawa, I was so ticked off with what was going on with the tough on crime policy that was going on with the government at the time. And probably 98% of the people that worked in the building that I worked in knew that going down that road was wrong. They knew that it was going to cost billions of dollars more. They knew that offenders that had been in a correctional mode where we assessed what the issues were, identified programs that people could take so that they could change behaviors, and people were going into the community and not returning to jail. So we know that it worked because we had over 25 years of research that showed exactly where things work, where we had to tweak things to make them better, and then tough on crime came in. And it was about more punishment and less let's fix the problem. And the reality is, if you continue to punish, all you do is you build bigger and bigger and bigger jails and keep more and more of your population there, and more of your tax dollars are going to feed that rather than putting money in actually at the base route with families so that people never get to corrections.
Yeah.
So you had talked about connections.
Mm-hmm.
I did not have one offender on my caseload who didn't speak to me about how lonely they were. And it wasn't about having a sexual relationship with somebody. It was about they had no connection with somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I saw that as such a problem. And how do I convince people who are on the outside, who are living pro-social lives, to make a connection with somebody who's got a criminal background? Not an easy thing to do.
Well, because they're very protective,
That's
and it's
right.
us and them.
Yes.
We look out the window here, downtown Lethbridge.
Yeah.
It's us,
Yeah.
and it's them, those people there on the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not the connection
No.
at all.
We are all part of this community.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, corrections was a microcosm of what goes on in the bigger community, but it needed to be part of the bigger community. And so many of my colleagues agreed with that.
Yeah.
So many of my colleagues understood the need to address the issues that brought people into conflict with the law, and then to be able to motivate them to move away from that conflict into pro-social lives. So you've got mental health issues, you've got addictions issues. All of those happen in the community, they happen in jail, but if you don't address them,
Yeah.
the problem just blows up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here we are right now, and like I said, our goal is not to be really political, but I love where you're coming from. I love your integrity, and I love your compassion for people. We see a lot of things on Facebook right now, a lot of things in the media, where we're talking about a safe injection site in Lethbridge. Mm-hmm. And I see the rants on Facebook and people just going off about, oh yeah, we're going to spend money on this. We're going to have this place where people can shoot up heroin and do this, this, and this, all for free. And you're promoting drug use. No, actually, you're actually
saving lives
for
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
It's more cost effective for another because they're there. You have health officials there that can help with that. And right now with the carfentanil and the fentanyl, the opiates out there that are contaminated, snow outside, -5 degrees, an OD, somebody drops dead, they'll freeze to death.
Yes.
A safe injection site means that if somebody needs help, they can get it right there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing too, and you kind of hinted on this, and I've been talking about this all week, there's connection.
Yes.
There's connection with healthcare, and I think when people see compassion, and you've got a great story about compassion, when people see that there's compassion and connection, there's a huge difference in what they want to do with their life because they realize now, oh, wait a minute, I do matter.
Yes.
And I think that's one thing you had shared with me a little story about your compassion. And I said, how do I address you? And then you had a wonderful story about that. Can you share that with us?
Okay, so I told you my name's Maria. And when I worked in corrections, the normal procedure was that all the guards were called by their last name, all the inmates were called by the last name. However, to me, if I'm calling somebody, hey, Smith, there's no connection. Immediately, I've put a barrier up. And I said, no, my name's Maria, and I call the offenders that I worked with by their first name. And I got in trouble with the guards because they wanted to charge offenders because they were calling me by my first name. And I had to have a verbal fight about I'm making a connection because I want things to change.
Yeah.
And in all the time I was in corrections, I had one offender swear at me. And the rest of the
33 years
Yes.
of corrections.
Yes.
One.
All of the offenders in my unit made the guy come back and apologize to me in front of the whole unit.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was shocked that happened. But I think it really spoke about respect.
Yeah.
And, I was constantly being called by supervisors, "You've addressed this offender by his first name in your report." I said, "Yes, because that's how I speak to him. And if I'm writing a report and I want him to understand I'm writing this report about him, I have to use his name. And he knows that I'm using his name." And there were certainly lots of offenders that I didn't support for a parole. But I always met with that offender and shared the report with them, told them I wasn't supporting and why I wasn't supporting. I also told them what they needed to do if they wanted to get my support in future. And I think I shared with you also, every offender that was on my caseload, I had my first conversation with them was about, this is your case or your parole, it's not mine.
Yeah.
I have a job to do, I have a job description, and I will do everything in my job description. However, if you do everything that you need to do to move forward and you take ownership of your responsibility, then I will work my behind off to make sure I get you into the programs that you need to be into, that you can move forward in a timely manner on your case, so that when you do come up for parole and you've done this, then you're ready to meet with the parole board. And if you're not, I'll tell you, don't put an application in yet. You're not ready.
Yeah.
And, if you do an anger management course, and I see you on Thursday when we're having canteen and you're fighting with the other guys in the canteen line, then you haven't learned from your anger management. So I'll have a conversation with you. You need to think about what you did in the anger management course. Maybe you need to do a refresher course on that, but you have to be able to demonstrate that the things you learned you can use, because when you get into the community you have to use those.
Yeah.
So again, it was I think that I had a connection to just about everybody on my caseload. And I also told you I had 2 guys on my caseload that I was never going to be able to support. I did not think that they were redeemable. And I'm telling you, that was a struggle for me to think that I couldn't find something in those people that that would move them forward into a pro-social lifestyle. And I think I also told you the one guy died of a brain tumor.
Yeah.
So that might have been what was going on with him. But to me, I wouldn't give up one day of that job that I had working in parole.
Yeah.
Because I felt that I was able to contribute something to make somebody's life better. And I think the biggest part that I could do was to make that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's such a massive lesson to be learned here about connection. And, once again, it's something that we talk about on a regular basis, where people talk about us and them, and, it's like, oh, I can't look at those people, or look at, and I think in light of the addiction struggles that we're having, not just in Lethbridge, in the First Nations community, all over the place, where it's an us and them, but we know how different life can be for people when there's a meaningful connection. We know that in drug addiction, when there is a connection, there's a great example set by U.S. troops coming back from Vietnam and all the heroin use that took place over there. And then they come back and everyone's concerned, well, these guys are going to bring drug addiction back to their families. And what happened? They come back, most of them quit.
Yeah.
Like that. Most of them got back into the community, connected with their families, and had no issues whatsoever. Yeah, okay, PTSD, things like that. However, most of them, once they were connected with families, it was a totally different world. And so that connection becomes really, really significant. And I think when we talk about addiction, we talk about that criminal element. One of the things we need to talk about too is the fact that it doesn't really discriminate. It doesn't matter what color your skin is, what your ethnic background is, whether you live in a nice house on the west side, the south side, whether you're, behind the 7-Eleven on 13th Street North.
Yeah.
Addiction happens across the board.
Doesn't matter whether you're 17 or you're 70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when there's a meaningful connection, there is a difference. So now we can look at people and we can say, okay, how can you change that? How can you make that difference to connect with the people around you? Now, you've gone one step further. That's kind of the serious, boy, it's Friday and here we're getting into the stuff, but you've gone one step further in that as well, in that technically you're a senior.
I am.
You're a senior and you're a member of Lethbridge. And here you are, a member of the Legislative Assembly of Alberta, and you're in not your early 60s, you're in your post-early 60s. And one of the biggest issues I've seen in my therapy practice and in talking with people is the disconnect for our seniors. And we have a number of great organizations that help them to connect. You've got a secret formula, I think, for maintaining connection and youth. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay, so I have a bucket list. And I said to you earlier, I think everybody needs a plan. And of course, when you're working, the plan is to retire. And
you're missing that, by the way.
yeah. Okay, but the thing is that do you go from working a 37 or 40-hour work week to doing nothing? And my whole life, I have never. My mother used to believe that idle hands was the devil's workshop.
Yeah.
So when we were kids, I was in the Brownies and the Guides. I was in the Glee Club. I was in the orchestra. I was in the youth group at church. I sang in the choir at church. She did not allow us to have a minute of free time. And I also said to you, I think the word hyperactive might have described me as a child.
Or passionate.
Yes,
Passionate.
much better word. Much better
Passionate.
word. Yeah. It's not that I don't enjoy some time doing nothing, but I wake up in the morning and I am so excited to get out of bed and do the things that I've got planned for the day. I have a bucket list in terms of when I retire. I'm going back to university. And I'm taking every course that I couldn't take when I was going to university because it wasn't part of my stream. But I don't have to take 5 courses at a time. I can take 1 course at a time because I want to play golf, I want to travel a little bit, I want to spend time with my granddaughter, my great-granddaughter, and I have great-grandchildren that I want to spend time with. I have incredible friends. As I said, I'm a member at Lethbridge. I go there every second Friday, and if I can't make it, my staff go over in my place. But there are things that are going on at Lethbridge that I want to do. So they have yoga classes, they have card groups, they have indoor curling. I mean, you name it. That activity goes on.
Plenty of
there.
opportunities to connect.
Exactly. I reach out in the community. I like people. There are times, as I said, that I like when I'm home and nobody's home, I take out my hearing aids and I sit down and I may pull a book up or I may just watch a show on TV. But having no noise at all is just fine. Because when I'm out and I'm doing stuff, it is lots of noise. And I love to listen to what people have to say. I get such great ideas. So yesterday, I spent the day in Calgary at the Alberta Seniors and Housing and Affordable Housing meeting. And I sat and I did not speak during, I had some conversations with people at breaks, but I listened all day. And I heard so many things that I need to bring back to my caucus and share with my caucus. I think that every issue that's on the table is also a senior issue. But it's a different perspective when you look at it as a seniors issue. When you talked about drug addiction, there are lots of seniors who are prescription addicted and
Yep.
don't even realize that they are. But it's because they are missing that connection link. I remember when my maternal grandmother was 87. She had lived on the farm until she was 87. She had a stroke and was paralyzed on one side of her body, so she had to go to a nursing home. The nursing home was in the same block as my youngest sister's school.
Oh, nice.
So my youngest sister, before she came home every day, went up to see my grandma. But my grandma, when she went into the nursing home, her two best friends were there also. They played cards every day. They played bingo. My grandmother died just before her 96th birthday.
Wow.
So even though her life was on the farm, and she was up baking bread every morning at 6 o'clock. She tended to the chickens. She had a wringer washer. She hung out the clothes. She was an active woman her whole life. But she was active when she wound up in the nursing home. I don't know that she had a plan to be active when she got in there. But as long as I have my wits about me, as long as I'm physically able, I feel I have something to give. And I want to be giving that. I want to be doing. My mom used to go and help out with St. Vincent de Paul and the CNIB. And my mom was in her 80s. And she said, I got to go help these old folks. And I'm thinking, Mom, you're older than some of those people you're helping. But
it's just the attitude, right?
Yes. And Mom broke her hip and she died very quickly after that. But it was her whole life she was active. And that's what I saw when I grew up. And it's what I lived as a person my whole life. So when opportunity presents itself, you talked about me being an athlete. I didn't run track until my last year of high school. And it was like they did a call on the PA system. Anybody who was interested, I was in a class I didn't want to be in. So I went down and tried out for the track team and realized that I had talent. Mm-hmm. And I loved running. So, I don't even think I'm finished with running. I think there's still a little more that I'd like to do. But there's so many things that anybody and everybody can connect to.
Yeah.
But as a community, we need to connect to our whole community. And our whole community means anybody who's on the street, anybody who's in an apartment all by themselves. We need to reach out and do that.
Yeah. You just reminded me of something. I go to Victory Church when I'm in town on the weekends. And last September, Pastor Kelly and his team organized this barbecue in the park, party in the park. Mm-hmm. And basically it was a Sunday church service, and it took place in Galt Gardens.
Yeah.
And the plan that day was to basically cook up as many hot dogs and buns as possible.
Yeah.
And feed everybody.
Yeah.
And, it's really interesting because there are the people that stand and line up and wait, and there are the other people that spend a lot of time in the park that don't have traditional housing, homeless people I'm referring to. And what do? They come stand right beside the barbecue, or they squeeze in right beside you and, hey, are those just about done?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hop in line? I said, so hungry.
Yeah.
And I found myself taking a step back going like, okay, what are we here for? Here I'm helping out. I'm serving this stuff up. Oh, I'm going to really be a part of this help. And I had to stop and wait a minute. Nope, that's this. I'm doing my thing, not the compassionate thing. Hey, buddy, hang on a sec. I got some just over here.
Yeah.
They're cool enough to eat right now.
Yeah.
Grab it. Hey, grab me a bun. There you go. Oh, can I get another one, my friend? Hey, here's 5.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we served about 2,500 people, and we served somewhere in the neighborhood of it. numbers might be a little off, about 4,000 hot dogs.
Yeah.
And I realize they're not the most nutritional things, but they are things that burn calories, that people can burn for calories. And, it's everybody's eating.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's eating that day. And after all was said and done, I kind of looked at it and I thought, you know what? I realized it's just one moment in time, but we connected with people.
Yes.
We broke down some barriers and we had fun.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it, and they had fun. We had music, we had all kinds of neat things. We had donations, clothing packages that were given out. It was an amazing event. But the best thing was we took our thing to that park.
Mm-hmm.
We connected.
Yeah.
And then we put our attitudes aside. I put my attitude aside.
Yeah.
To connect. And I think, how important is it that we put the attitude aside? And and I've said it before. You're walking downtown, and of course the snow is falling now, and there's a heavy snowfall warning in effect. How wonderful would it be to say good morning,
Yeah.
good afternoon,
Yeah.
to connect with somebody in a significant way? And even when Amanda Panda was on the show yesterday, Feed the Need, she's talking about a process where we're not taking a lot of time, but we are connecting.
Yeah.
And we're just helping out. But that connection is so important.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting in our community because certainly a number of churches do that, and I'm at McKillop Church,
Yeah.
and we do that. But the Labour Council does a Labour Day picnic, and it's for the unemployed, the underemployed, and anybody else who wants to have
Yeah.
something. And same kind of thing, open to the community. And to make those connections, because often labor unions are considered like, the Jimmy Hoffas, and in fact, they're your neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they work a job, and they're part of a union, and things make a difference for everybody in the community when that happens.
Well,
But
everybody
again,
is.
it's the connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, everybody is somebody's son, daughter, father, mother,
Brother,
sister, brother,
yeah.
relative, friend.
Yeah.
Everybody is.
That's
we
right.
all have that commonality.
Yeah.
So that right there's our connection. Now, moving forward, sometime over the next little, we don't need to give out any information. Sometime over the next little while, your term is going to be done,
Yeah.
and then there's going to be an election.
Yes.
And to sit here and to sit in caucus, to be a member of the Legislative Assembly, it takes a little bit of money, right?
Mm-hmm. It does.
What do you do for that?
Okay, so the new rules on elections limits the amount of money that you can spend in an electoral district association. So my association has actually been around for about 30 years. And we do fundraisers every year, and in fact, we've got one coming up on on the 10th of March. We're having a Cayley, which is an Irish party, just before.
Slow that down
Yeah.
for a second.
A Cayley.
Cayley.
Yes, and a Cayley means an Irish party.
Okay.
So there's music, there's food, there's probably some alcohol, but it's
Irish. Probably.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a family-friendly event.
Yeah.
And what we're having this year is we're having a jigs dinner, which is many people refer to it as a Newfie dinner, but in fact it's a dinner that they have in Ireland as well. So we'll have our dinner, we'll have some Irish music playing while we eat, and then after dinner we have a dessert auction. And I make an Irish whiskey bread pudding with Irish whiskey caramel sauce,
Yum, yum, yum.
which is, it seems to be a hit.
Yeah.
But we have a number of desserts that we auction off, and usually you buy it by the table because all of them are fairly significant desserts.
Yeah.
And so you can decide as a table which dessert you want to bid on, or which couple of desserts you want to bid on, and how much you want to spend on that. And we usually have at least one dessert per table, and then we have some extras. So people may bid on a dessert to take home with them for an event. Or they have done a couple of times whatever they got for my bread pudding, they auctioned again if somebody wanted to get one for an event that they may be doing,
Yeah.
and then I'm obligated to make it for that event,
Nice.
which I have done. And normally I make it myself. My daughter helped me out last year with it. However, this year she's a graduate from NAIT in the Culinary Arts program, so she's cooking the Jigs dinner with a number of volunteers, and so I'm left to my own devices to get that done on Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is going to take place where and what time?
Okay, March the 10th. At the Eagles Hall, and you need to get a ticket beforehand because if not, there won't be space for
Okay,
you.
and tickets are?
You can get tickets at Gas King. Tickets are $45 for an
That's
adult.
pretty reasonable.
Pretty reasonable, because I'm telling you, this is going to be an awesome meal.
Yeah.
And bring some extra cash for the dessert auction. And if you want to drink, then you need to bring a little extra money for drinks. But it's family friendly. We have a group of Irish dancers that are coming to do a performance for us. And then we have a wonderful group of musicians that will be playing Irish music for us for the dance part. I think the doors open at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
But please get your ticket and come on out to the Cayley. It is a blast. Oh, we're also doing best costume. So
This will be an Irish costume, or
yes,
what?
yes, an Irish costume. You figure out what it's going to be, and we're doing one for an adult and one for a child.
Okay, and tickets are at Gas King. That's going to be next weekend. And once again, that's another opportunity for people to connect with you,
Yes.
and connect with your team, and help raise some money for
My election campaign.
the election campaign, which will be sometime in the distant
A year
near-
or so.
A
Yeah.
year or so.
Yeah.
A year or so. We'll leave it at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You know what? I must say honestly, it has been a pleasure connecting with you this morning. I wish you continued success. I think there's definitely a message here for all of us, and that is we definitely need to, whether it's just connecting in the community
Yes.
with the individuals in the downtown area, connecting with our seniors connecting with other seniors, the youth, and really I think there's a real call for us to really take a look at how we can connect with people that we think are the fringe element, and maybe they're just not so different from us after all.
Well,
little compassion
I
goes a
want to
long
give
way.
you one other example. In this city, there's lots of coalitions.
Yeah.
All right, lots of groups that work together. That's about connection.
Yeah.
So even in terms of our economy, the more connected we are as community members, the more connected we are in terms of our economy. We've been pretty good during
Yeah.
this recession, and certainly agriculture, having a university and a college here in town, having groups that are so active in terms of keeping things connected in the community. But the more connections we have, the stronger we are as a community, economically, health and wellness, all of it comes down to
Yeah,
connections.
we are
Yeah.
stronger as a community
That's
than
right.
as individuals.
That's correct.
Always, we
Yes.
we have a phenomenal amount of resources available. You're one of those resources.
Mm-hmm.
You're a voice of compassion and a voice of inspiration for connection. Maria, thank you very much for being on the program today. I thank you very much for that. I'll be posting some links so
Mm-hmm.
that people can connect if they want to attend the fundraiser, if they want to learn a little bit more about you. And I think people really need to learn a little bit more about you to continue that inspiration for
Thank you.
connection.
Yes.
I thank you very much. For people joining in and watching in, thank you very much for doing that. The video will be available on my Facebook page and on YouTube. And for more information about this, follow the links, and you can also get some more information about me and what we're doing here, jessfm.ca or jamescastelli.ca. thank you once again. Continued success.
Thank you.
And have fun when you get back up to Edmonton
I
next
will.
week.
I
Thank you
will.
guys very much. We'll get back to the music here. You guys have an amazing day. Stay safe as you're traveling through the snow. And I think Maria had one of these great songs that she wanted to hear. And I think we have to put that on. It's going to be the Moody Blues.
All right.
Nights in White Satin.
All right.
The great music continues. Good morning.